This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News. I'm joined by Frank Smith here at the weigh-in for Michael Conlan versus Jordan-Gill. Frank, good to see you here in Belfast. How are you finding your brief time so far here?
I'm good, mate. I actually came yesterday, late last night. I've been in Dublin and all around for the last few days, getting a few bits together. But yes, good to be here, mate.
Obviously, we hear the return of Michael Conlan and the return of Jordan-Gill, both coming in on the back of defeats. What do you expect to see go down tomorrow night?
I think you've got two guys in there who haven't really got quit in them. You know, they've been in some of the best fights we've seen over the last couple of years. Jordan-Gill has shown that don't count him out. You know, especially in that fight against Guerfi, he's got a lot of fight in him, and I think we're in for a spectacular fight. I think Michael Conlan shows that he's still got a massive future here, especially in Belfast. Huge ticket sales that we all know and have seen over the last few years, and you know it's a big fight for the division because there's so many fights. Obviously, this fight at 130 going up, but there's so many fights to be made over the next year or so between these guys and you know the other fighters we've been talking about, the likes of Lee Wood, Josh Warrington, etc. Joe Cordina as well, another name. So many big fights to be made. So it's an important fight for both of their careers.
That's something I wanted to come on to next. When you look at what could be next for Lee Wood, there's a lot of talk about that potential Josh Warrington fight, which seems to currently be the front runner. But looking at Mick Conlan, what type of performance would he have to do to really catch the attention and maybe put himself ahead of Josh in the pecking order for a Lee Wood rematch?
I think Josh Warrington, I think the reality is the Josh Warrington fight is the most likely fight as we sit here today. I think, but over the next year, there's no, you know, I think even the winner of, if we do Wood Warrington, the winner of that against Michael Conlan's a massive fight. You know, all of those guys have got huge fan bases that travel, and we've seen it time and time again. So, you know, look, he'll be fully focused on what he's got to do on Saturday night. You know, he's got to come back. It was a hard fight, his last one against Lopez, but he'll be fully focused on getting through it and getting the result on Saturday, not looking beyond that. But you know, like I say, I think Wood Warrington is the favourite as we sit here today, but it doesn't mean that opportunity against the winner won't come next year.
We obviously know Lee's got that desire to fight at the City Ground. Just kind of looking at that and looking towards that, even though it would be, say, May time or summertime for that to take place, how early do you have to start trying to plan for something like that because it's a stadium fight?
No, look, we've been in discussions for quite a while with the club. It is tough with dates. You know, between when the football season finishes, there's 1 weekend. The football season finishes, they've got Take That, I think, are performing there. I hope it's been announced. If not, Take That are performing at Nottingham Forest. They're relaying the pitch as well, I think, on June the 8th. June the 1st is the weekend of the Champions League, which makes it very difficult from a broadcast sense. So there's 1 weekend, I believe, is May the 18th. And that's why it's tough. It's tough, and then you've obviously got the production elements of the unannounced, announced Take That gig as well that needs to be taken into account. So, yeah, we've been in discussions for a while now, back and forth. You know, so it needs to get up and moving in the next couple of weeks if we're going to make it happen.
Frank, I hope the Take That gig has been announced for your own sake. But moving away from that, coming back to this card, Agyarko-Williamson, very interesting fight, the step up that a lot of people have wanted to see for Agyarko. Now, what are you expecting to see in that bout?
I think it's the kind of fight Kevin needs. You know, that's why we pushed for it, because we believe it's the right time for those types of fights. And you know, it's a tough fight. Troy Williamson's a great fighter, but you know, we believe he can win that fight, and we believe it's, like I say, the right time for him. You know, he's done great tickets here in Belfast, so good for him to finally be back here. You know, I think, like I say, we're in for a great fight in that one.
Provided he comes through, how do you expect the 154 landscape to look for him next year?
I think there's some big fights there to be made, and look, once he comes through this type of fight, I think he'll be ready to step on into those big fights. There's a lot of interesting, you know, it's interesting times, especially, you know, with the likes of JJ Metcalf potentially. You know, we're looking at something for Israel Madrimov as well, who's mandatory or he's at #1 challenger for the WBA title. So there's lots of potential fights out there to be made.
Just moving away from him, one other fight I want to get your thoughts on is McKenna-Crocker, because they've obviously had a heated back and forth in the build up to this. What have you made of their interactions and looking ahead to their fight tomorrow night?
Yeah, look, great to see, and you need that bit of fight. It's a great card top to bottom, this show as well, but they've sold 1,200 odd tickets between the two of those. It's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere in there for that fight. You know, I haven't followed, I'll be honest with you, obviously McKenna's been around a long time in the sport. A few people say Croker's the favourite in this fight, but you know, I think we're in for a great fight.
Obviously, Frank, one of the biggest talking points this week was the British Boxing Board of Control's Robert Smith saying that they've rejected Conor's application to gain a licence to box here early part of next year for the Eubank Jr. fight. I was wondering to get your reaction to that when it was announced.
Yeah, look, I can't really add much more than what Eddie said yesterday. It's been a long-running situation, as we know. It's been a lot of public discussion about it all, and right now we're talking about something hypothetical. The fight hasn't been made, but yeah, I think we have to make the fight first, and then go from there and decide what we need to do. Disappointing the way things have played out in these, with this situation, especially very publicly from the board side and Robert Smith. But yeah, I can't really add much more than what he said yesterday.
Eddie did say that the fight's been closed for a while in terms of being ready to make, hence why they've reached out to the board to try and get the fight licensed with them. So how close would you say it is currently from your understanding?
Look, it's the biggest fight out there. It's the fight that makes the most sense for both fighters. These things take time. These types of fights take time to make. But I feel like we're not far off from it getting done. It's not signed though, otherwise it would be announced by now. But yeah, I'm confident we'll get there with it.
I know there's always been an intention to try and license the fight under the British Boxing Board of Control. As things progress, though, there's obviously been a couple of reports suggesting maybe other commissions will be considered. Would there be a cloud hanging over a potential Eubank Benn fight if that fight proceeded under a different licence?
Again, we're talking about hypotheticals. The fight's not made. We're not there yet. We've done everything within our power. Conor Benn's not suspended. There's no suspension hanging over him. The British Boxing Board of Control asked for it to be dealt with by UCAD, which is who handle all their doping cases. UCAD lifted his suspension because they currently, whether there's appeals going on, he currently has no suspension not to box. So we want the British Boxing Board of Control to sanction the fight. But if they're not going to be in a position to sanction the fight, then we have to look at other options while Conor Benn's not suspended. If he was suspended, it's a different story. He's suspended from boxing at that point. It's a different story. But he is not suspended. He shouldn't, he should be able to box right now. Hence why he boxed in Florida. There's no restriction on him boxing. So, but again, we're talking about hypotheticals. We have to make the fight and then we go from there. Because otherwise, we're talking about things and they may never come to fruition.
So for you, Frank, how do the say the coming days and weeks play out then? How do we start to get more news coming around Conor and the situation?
Well, look, it's 9 weeks away. So 9 weeks away tomorrow. We have to make the fight in the next 48, 72 hours, in my opinion. In terms of making the fight, still got to do a bit of work from there, but we really need to announce it 8 weeks out, I'd say. For a fight of that magnitude. We've got 60, 70 odd thousand tickets we need to sell. So, yeah, over the next 48, 72 hours, we'll see where we land and then we work from there next week.
Just final one on it all. Obviously, February 3rd seems to be the date you still want to push for, especially on the back of that. Buatsi Aziz was announced for Feb 3rd. Has that changed maybe your opinions all whether to go on that date?
No. They sold 10,000 tickets for it last time, yet they've gone for it to a venue that's smaller than the O2. So, but it's not, our focus is, look, we're not trying to do anything to affect someone else's show. It's always been a discussion that we've had is the date of February 3rd. It's been quite public as well. They chose to announce a show on that date. So we're not putting anything in place just to disrupt another promoter, honestly. But these shows, an event of this magnitude, there's only certain dates we can get. It's not like going to an arena when you're looking at stadium shows. It's very different. So, but like I said, I don't want people to look at it saying they're doing it to disrupt another promoter. It's nothing to do with that. We have to do it on that date if we're going to make it happen.
Frank, moving away from all stuff, Conor Benn, take me back to Dublin last week. Katie Taylor gaining her revenge over Chantelle Cameron.
Yeah, honestly, I've said it a few times. The best night we've seen. And I've been lucky enough to be at events all around the world in some stadiums of 80, 90,000 seaters. But there's something about going to Dublin. There's something about Katie Taylor fights, especially the Serrano fight at MSG, the first fight with Chantelle Cameron, and this one. The best night we've seen in a long, long time. And we know what our job is to do now. We want to deliver a fight at a stadium that cements her legacy in the sport.
For you, Frank, the Cameron trilogy or the Serrano rematch?
Look, my preference, we obviously promote Chantelle Cameron as well. We don't promote Amanda Serrano. Our job is to deliver the best possible opportunities for our fighters. And I'd love to see the Chantelle Cameron fight. Honestly, I'd love to see a trilogy of that fight. It delivered in both the first and second as amazing, not just amazing atmospheres, but amazing fights. Respect to both of them because they went in there and they gave it everything. So as Chantelle Cameron's promoters, I'd love to see that fight again. I think as we sit here today, probably it's not going to be Chantelle's favourite approach is to come back to Dublin. But I think as time goes on, as the weeks go on, that mindset will change. So I'm confident we can make it happen. Again, the Amanda Serrano fight though is huge as well. But as Chantelle's promoter, I'd love to see that fight.
Just final couple more to get your thoughts on. The WBA have introduced the super cruiserweight division. Your thoughts on that introduction, Frank?
I read it earlier. It's the same as Bridgerweight, right? Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I don't feel Bridgerweight has really worked for whatever reason. I don't know why, but hopefully we see some great fights in that division. If it delivers opportunities for fighters and great fights, then that's good for the sport. But I don't feel so far it's really taken off. Maybe with the other sanctioning bodies getting behind it, maybe the WBA's neck, and then IBF, WBO will follow. I don't know, but yeah, I think we'll have to see.
One thing people have asked in the past is maybe why has there not been an introduction of a weight category between light heavyweight and cruiser, if something was to be, because there's obviously a massive difference there. Is it something you guys speak about with the governing bodies?
Not really, but I do believe. I always thought that would be the place to sort of chuck it in there. But what do I know?
Frank, pleasure as always. Enjoy tomorrow night.
Cheers, mate. Good to see you.